Hi everyone, welcome back to the third video in our CareLink series for education and support videos meant to help you prepare for your remote visits with your healthcare team. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to read and assess CGM and Auto Mode reports. Of course, these videos were created for information and education purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or management. We would always encourage you to seek the help of your physician or other medical healthcare professional with any questions you may have regarding your medical condition. In this video, we're going to quickly review the Yes I Can framework along with the CareLink 3-step methodology. For a more detailed look at both of those, you can review video 1 and video 2 in this series. Then we're going to orient you to the assessment and progress report, the weekly review report, and the meal bolus wizard report, and take you through a quick case study to show you how it's done. These are the three reports you would use when assessing CGM and Auto Mode data: the assessment and progress, the weekly review, and the meal bolus wizard report. And this is, of course, our Yes I Can framework, which we reviewed in the first two videos in this series. I just want to take a moment to remind you that we always want to take a good look at all the effort you've been putting into living well with type 1 diabetes by looking at, acknowledging, and celebrating the positives. It's a solution-focused approach that allows you to look at what's been going well and how to do more of it to get the outcomes that you want. Next, we would want to take a look at some of the issues, concerns, or patterns you are seeing that you might like to better understand. These are always going to fall into three categories. They're going to be behaviors that may need to be adapted in order to achieve the outcomes that you want. They're going to be patterns of hypoglycemia noted because this is when you are at risk, or patterns of hyperglycemia or highs that we might want to mitigate. We do this by using our CareLink 3-step methodology. We always look at the overnight first, followed by the pre-meal periods, and then the post-meal periods. And of course, we're always looking for those behaviors that we can adapt to improve, patterns of any lows, because this is when we're vulnerable and at risk, and patterns of highs that might help us to mitigate long-term complications. And so let me introduce you to the assessment and progress report. I'll first walk you through the report so that you know what you're looking at. The assessment and progress report first offers you the reporting period that you're looking at. We always want to encourage you to look at a week to 2 weeks at a time because it's the most recent data, and things change a lot with type 1 diabetes, as you know. It also offers you the opportunity to compare it to a previous reporting period so that you can see the progress that your changes have made. Next, the report offers you the sensor overlay information for your sensor glucose data. The blue would be the most recent reporting period, and the peach seen here would be the previous reporting period if you've chosen to compare. You are looking at midnight to midnight, and all of the data is shown. The blue or peach areas represent the 25th to the 75th percentile, which allows you to focus on what's happening most of the time. This also affords us finally an opportunity to get away from looking at those one or two outliers, the one high or the one low that you've had. That shouldn't be our focus. We should be focusing on the things that are happening the majority of the time. The outliers we might look at in terms of trying to better understand them, but they are not the focus. Below the overlay graph, you're offered your carb ratio profile for the 24-hour period, along with the one from the previous reporting period. This is followed by the system assessing and recording for you any patterns it notes for lows or highs. In this case, you can see there are no patterns of highs, but there is one occurrence of a low. And an occurrence represents an episode that lasted longer than 30 minutes. The report then offers you time and range. And again, if you've chosen a comparison period, it will offer you the difference between the two. The goal for time and range for adults is greater than or equal to 70%, and we'll all jump for joy when you get there. For children ages 7 to 13, the goal would be greater than or equal to 65%. So in terms of this report, you can see that between manual mode and 2 weeks later of auto mode, this person has improved their time in range from 34% to 82%. The goal for time spent low would be less than or equal to 4%. Next, we are offered auto mode exit information. So all of the reasons that one might be exited from auto mode are listed, and the number of occurrences for each are noted, along with the comparison to the previous reporting period. Lastly, we are offered all of the statistical data. This includes data about sensor wear, and of course the idea is that if you're wearing your sensor for greater than or equal to 85% of the time, and you spend greater than or equal to 80% of the time in auto mode, that 70% goal for time and range is quite achievable. This is followed by your BG and calibration data, so how many times you're testing and how many are being used for calibration. And of course, best practice is to both test and calibrate 3 to 4 times per day. This is followed by insulin and infusion set data, along with your meal and carb information, and lastly, your active insulin time. The next report I will orient you to is the weekly review report. Now, for some people, this can feel very overwhelming to look at, but I'm going to show you what each of these items are and the best way to use this report. One of the main reasons to use this report, if we're following our CareLink 3-step methodology, is to assess the overnight. So again, we are offered the reporting period for this report that you're viewing here. You can see that each day is one of these blocks, midnight to midnight, followed by the next day, midnight to midnight. Each of the days are outlined at the top of each box. Of course, this is your sensor glucose graph, which we are offered a continuous view right through the week, which is why it's the best report for assessing the overnight. Then we are offered information about the auto mode exits. You can see they're numbered 1 and 2. And these numbers will correspond with the exit reason details. So it will outline for you what those exits were and what each of those exits mean. In the bottom of each box, you will be given a visual of the auto basal delivery. So that is the pink that you are seeing here. And you can see how different it is for each day of the week. This would represent a bolus wizard event. The carb amounts are outlined in the orange box, and the insulin delivered are the purple droplets. Lastly, I just want to point your attention to the legend at the bottom of each of these reports so that you can see what each of these items are and familiarize yourself with everything that's going on the page. Our third report allows us to assess step 2 and 3 of our CareLink 3-step methodology. This is the Meal Bolus Wizard report. So each of the meal buckets are outlined, and what it allows us to do is, no matter if you ate your breakfast at 7:30, 7:45, or 8 o'clock, it pulls all of the data and shifts it to the point of bolus, outlined by this red line here. This allows us to look at the hour before the meal and 3 to 5 hours after the meal, which allows us to quickly assess step 2 and 3 of our CareLink 3-step methodology, pre and post meal. Each of the meal buckets offers you some statistical data as well. This includes the timing of the meal bucket as outlined in your preferences This is customizable and adjustable as we discussed in video 1. It will tell you how many boluses there were during this reporting period, during this meal bucket time frame. It offers you the carb ratio along with the average carbohydrates that you had and the average bolus that you took. So let's pull it all together and run through an assessment of this case. We're going to fall back on our Yes, I Can framework and always identify all the positives first. In this case, there are so many to look at. So our time in range goal is greater than or equal to 70%, and for this person, they're already at 82% just 2 weeks into auto mode. The time spent below range is well below our goal of less than or equal to 4%. Their sensor wear is at 97% along with their time spent in auto mode, which is probably why they're doing so well. You can see an estimated A1C of 6.6%, appropriate infusion set changes, and very few auto mode exits. So these are great things to celebrate and acknowledge. Things we might better want to understand would be the 2 sensor algorithm underread exits and how to address them. Sensor algorithm underread occurs when the system notices that your sensor glucose reading is lower than where it would be predicted to be at. In our Success with CGM videos, this will be explained further, but this might be something we would want to better understand and discuss. When we take a look at the weekly review report, we're really using this one to assess the overnight and the auto mode exits. But let's take a look at all the positives. Auto mode is doing a great job, you can see here, of bringing this person into range during the overnight. The auto mode exits are quite brief, so this person is responding appropriately to the exits and returning quickly, swiftly back into auto mode. They're calibrating appropriately and entering lots of data for bolus assessment. And again, as already discussed, one of the things we might want to better understand would be the sensor algorithm underread, when and why it's happening. But for this person, it's only happened twice and in quick succession, so it may well have been an anomaly. Lastly, in our 3-step CareLink methodology, we'll take a look at the pre and post meal by looking at the Meal Bolus Wizard report. So this person is appropriately bolusing at meals. There is very little hypoglycemia, and they're experiencing a fairly flat post-meal rise. These are all great things to acknowledge. Things we might want to better understand is whether or not we can improve this post-breakfast. Maybe we need to tighten it, or is it due to meal choices and how those are being metabolized in the body. We also see this slight rise just before dinner highlighted in gold here. This pre-dinner rise may be due to the timing of pre-bolusing, so we might want to take a look at that and discuss whether or not we are pre-bolusing and if that time period is long enough. And then lastly, if we pull it all together, we have all the positives that we've collected during our assessment, and they're all outlined here. Some of the issues or things we might better like to understand are the auto mode underread exits, which are potentially related to site selection, insertion, or taping. The post-breakfast rise, which we've already determined could be related to carb ratios or different impact of food choices, and this is a discussion we would have with our healthcare team. And then that post-dinner rise, which could be related again to carb ratios or timing of the pre-bolus or the different impact of food choices. So we're going to bring this to our remote appointment to discuss with our healthcare team so that we can all collaborate on an action plan for the next few weeks or months. I want to take an opportunity to thank you for your participation in all 3 videos. I hope you found them helpful as you meet with your healthcare team on whatever remote or virtual platform you're using, and we will continue to work together to improve your outcomes. Take care.